The year is 2063. The US is a post-apocalyptic wasteland, teeming with all manner of bandit gangs and cannibal mutants. Resources are scarce. Basic necessities like food, water, and gasoline are hard to come by, and even the most resilient locals are just barely scraping by. Somewhere, amidst the irradiated sands of the desert, a lone scavenger comes upon a pre-war radio. He begins to tinker with it. When he finally manages to turn it on, he's greeted by a strange signal coming over the airwaves. It's the voice of a woman, calling out to him in a strange series of numbers. He hops on his motorcycle and drives towards the source of the signal, compelled by its strange allure. This is Ashes 2063, a total conversion mod for Doom 2. And while it may technically be a mod, don't let that fool you. Ashes is really truly a full and complete gameplay experience, complete with its own unique world, new weapons, enemies, engaging storyline, and even its own standalone launcher. So if you're someone who can't be bothered fiddling around with Doom mod packs, you can simply download the game and start playing. No installation necessary. Upon starting the program, you'll be greeted by one of the game's many soundtracks, all of which have been composed specifically for the mod, and all of them are fantastic in their own right, and never fail to set the mood of whatever area the player finds themselves in. Each track is handcrafted and serves to not only enhance the gameplay experience, but sometimes creates the game's atmosphere in its entirety. Upon starting a new game, you'll get to play through a brief tutorial to help shake the dust off your Doom muscle memory, before you set off into the main story. You play as an unnamed scavenger who comes upon a radio while out looking for scrap in a nearby bandit encampment. This area serves as an introduction to the game's world, full of devious raiders and their mutant hounds. But it's nothing a seasoned scavenger like yourself can't handle. Armed with your trusty crowbar and a fully loaded revolver, you head inside, eager to explore. You make your way through what seems to be an abandoned factory, complete with still functioning manufacturing equipment and upper offices. The level is short and tight, more so just a place for you to get comfortable with the mechanics than anything else. Shoot some baddies, grab some loot, until finally you find what you came here for, the radio. After turning it on, you hear a strange frequency broadcasting. It's a number station, manned by a lone woman. Curious, the scavenger takes the radio with him, hoping to make a couple bucks off it back in town. Desperate for fuel, we're left with no choice but to head towards a nearby bandit camp in search of supplies. The cover of night is on our side, and we do our best to go in quietly before being forced to go guns blazing. It's not only bandits that we come across either, as it seems the local mutant population was also keen on investigating the encampment. We managed to push our way through the fighting just long enough to grab some fuel and make our way back to the bike. On our way back, however, we're ambushed by a ferocious pack of mutants, led by their 10-foot-tall cannibal master, wielding a rather devastating flamethrower. The scavenger manages to escape, but only barely. Battered and bruised, he limps his way back to the closest settlement, a place where he's made a small semblance of a home for himself, the Wall. He tracks down one of the town's guards and tries to warn him about the dangerous creatures he's just encountered. Of course, no one believes him. Mutants are stupid, nothing more than bloodthirsty subhumans. The idea that one of them could be intelligent enough to wield a device as complicated as a flamethrower is laughable to the townsfolk. Feeling defeated, the scavenger asks if anyone around town has been hearing the strange signal on the radio. Of course, no one has. The townsfolk don't use the radio for much other than to signal some other outposts in the area. However, we do learn a bit about the town's history. The townsfolk are in a strange sort of political limbo. They were once protected by the remnants of the National Guard, but they have since disappeared. The townspeople are patiently awaiting the return of their leaders. However, it's been 3 years since the guardsmen left on their secret mission towards the city. Now, a new leader has moved in, Barrett. Him and his group of marauders have taken up residency in the town and are causing problems. Thankfully, though, Barrett and his men have just left on a small expedition, giving the townsfolk a much-needed respite. Eventually, you meet an old man who claims to have heard the woman on the radio. He tells you that she's mystical, a kind of omnipotent deity who marks those destined for a greater purpose. He does not know what the numbers themselves mean, but he does know that you have been chosen for something greater. Perhaps he is nothing more than a senile old man, or perhaps he is telling the truth. Only time will tell. You meet another friendly fellow who claims to have been to the city on more than one occasion, although his stories about the place are less than reassuring.
Well, about 3 years ago, me and two others went into the city. Found a pretty good claim, too. Old S-Mart place, filled with goodies. Never go to the city at night. Golden rule. That's what they say, ain't it? We made camp at this place. I went up to the roof. Wanted to look at the stars. Imagine it was all back to the way it was. And it was beautiful. Clear skies, just a hint of blue as the moon came up. I was sat there for a good hour or so. That's when I saw it. It was a person, just walking up on the roof of one of the towers, except it wasn't walking, really, just sort of drifting. So I'm watching this thing, and they just keep walking off the edge of this roof, and it just drifted through thin air, went into another tower, and vanished. I saw what I saw, packed my bags in the morning, and told the other two I was heading back. Never been to the city since. Not then, not ever.
Later, you meet with Smiley, a rather shifty trader. He was the one that tipped you off to the radio's location in the first place. He offers you a small sum to part with it, which you gladly accept. Before doing so, however, you ask about the strange signals you've been hearing. Smiley takes you for a fool, claiming that the woman on the radio is nothing more than an urban legend. He figures all the radiation you've come across out in the wasteland must have fried your brain. Before you leave, he gives you another job. He asks you to take a briefcase to his friend over in Michonne's Circle, near the city. Considering you were heading that direction anyways, it seems like a way to make some easy cash. You take the briefcase, its contents wholly unknown to you, and head over to the bar for one last drink before you set out. The bartender mentions he might have some work for you before you go. He introduces you to a friend of his named Fortune. She tells you that since Barrett and his men have left to chase their ghost, the townsfolk want to take back the nearby dam to restore power to the settlement. Barrett's left a few men behind, but you're sure it's nothing you can't handle. Just as you're preparing to head inside, Fortune stops you and offers to make a wager. A race of sorts. Whoever gets to the dam's control room first wins. If she gets there first, she'll take your share of the pay and you'll be left with nothing for your trouble. But if you win, she'll hand over her prized shotgun. Never one to turn down a challenge, you accept, and make your way into the dam through the south entrance. The inside of the dam is a veritable death trap. As you make your way down an elevator, you treat a group of unsuspecting bandits to a nice shock before the level's difficulty is ramped up. Tight corridors and branching doorways will see you quickly overcome by bandit ambushes. Suffice to say, you'll die plenty of times during your playthrough. The footage you're seeing on screen is being played on the game's second hardest difficulty, an experience that I think works in the game's favor, as the scavenger can only take a handful of hits before going down, and ammo is definitely something you will come to covet. You fight your way through the dam, past turbines and waterways, all the while turning several valves in order to progress to the control room. When you finally reach the command center, you're faced with taking out the last of Barrett's men before getting a chance to claim your prize. By this point, your resources are fully exhausted. You'll have to time your shots carefully to ensure you don't waste a single bullet. Through skill, or perhaps sheer luck, you take out the last of the marauders, but just barely. As you turn off the last valve, Fortune greets you at the door. Looks like you've won the race. Reluctantly, she hands over your reward. A well-worn shotgun, kept in immaculate condition. You're not quite sure if there's any difference from the normal shotgun or if it's just a slight reskin, but it's a nice reward nonetheless. Thus, you take to the highways, driving past overturned vehicles and crumbling roadways lost to time. You make a brief detour at a truck stop to take out some goons and look for supplies. You make short work of the men, crashing in through an upstairs window and quickly dispatching the bandits before they have any time to react. You gather what meager supplies you can find stashed away in dark corners, and make your way back to the bike to continue your journey. The tunnel leading into the city appears to be blocked, and you're forced to take an alternative route through the spillways. Your tires tear through the sewage and muck before you finally come to the highway and get your first look at the collapsed buildings and crumbling towers that make up this once great city. As you make your way into the first of many ruined buildings, you'll run along the edge of a cliff. Just be careful not to fall. You come out into a parking garage and encounter even more bandits. Your gut tells you the city will be crawling with them. Your fears are quickly confirmed. Try your best to remain stealthy, but you're ambushed by a swarm of thugs in a nearby building. You take refuge in the old police station, doing your best to take out the bandits quietly as you go. You find a group of marauders hanging out in an old conference room and take care of them. In the corner, you find a gold key that lets you into the security office. Inside is the corpse of the old security guard, along with a switch that opens up the flooded holding cells beneath the station. Down here, you find what you've been looking for, a silver key to allow you access to the evidence room and storage area of the police station, along with a shiny new machine pistol, perfect for taking out multiple swarms of bandits in one go. Inside the storage room, shooting a couple of propane tanks sets off an explosion strong enough to clear a path forward for you. You make your way inside the building containing the thugs who first ambushed you when you entered the city. The pipe bomb makes short work of them. The last of the bandit hordes blocks the entrance into the tunnels below the city. As you make your way inside the caverns, you're reminded of the many ghost stories you've heard regarding this place. While these subterranean tunnels offer refuge from the poisonous air above, ghouls and mutants lurk around every corner. With no other choice, you press on in search of the settlement Smiley told you about. An old man greets you at the entrance to the South Gate station. He tries to warn you about the dangers that lurk below. He's the last survivor of a settlement here at the gate's entrance. The rest of his group have left in search of the woman on the radio, but they've all met their fate down in the tunnels. A group of bandits came down here just before you and tore through any remaining survivors. He tries his best to dissuade you, but you press on, in search of Michonne's circle and the man you're supposed to deliver the briefcase to, Riggs. As you make your way further into the darkness, you come across the body of a bandit, covered in strange pulsing green nodules. It's not long before you find the culprit, the gas bags. The decrepit shopping center of this station is filled to the brim with these strange floating creatures. Shooting them causes the creatures to explode in a shower of poisonous green sludge. If you're not careful about keeping your distance, you might just end up like your bandit friend. You're forced to detour into a nearby tunnel in search of a key needed to progress. Down here, in the dark, flooded caverns, your lantern offers the only semblance of safety. Without it, you're left in the dark, alone with only the cries of the mutants, and encircled by glowing yellow eyes of their hounds. Further on, you find the white arrows that Moose told you to follow back at the wall. Your curiosity gets the better of you, though. Perhaps there's a stash of untouched loot hiding in the darkness. This time, your efforts are rewarded. Along with an overrun settlement full of goodies, you find a switch to turn on the power in certain parts of the tunnels, offering some much-needed light on your journey. It's not all good news, though. As you turn to leave, you're met with a new opponent. Dark, shadowy figures who float through the air and fire bolts of electricity, all while letting out a harrowing screech. Perhaps there was some validity to those ghost stories after all. You carry on. More arrows. Your curiosity paid off last time. Who's to say it won't pay off again? You find a pit of radioactive chemicals, the air teeming with more of those floating spore creatures. A yellow keycard sits atop the rubble, but grabbing it means you'll be unable to get out the way you came. Doing your best to dash through quickly in hopes of minimizing radiation exposure, you grab the keycard and duck into a corner, coming out into the train yard. You manage to survive the radiation, but you're low on ammo. You fight through a few enemies with your crowbar, fighting desperately to conserve what little bullets you have left, but turning a corner you come face to face with another gigantic cannibal master. With no other choice, you're forced to use the last of your pipe bombs to take him out, just barely managing to take him down with your life intact. It's not all bad news, though. On his corpse you find his flamethrower, a powerful tool able to explode anything and everything in its wake. You're now faced with a rather difficult choice. Cut your losses and head back the way you came, back towards the arrows you are sure will lead you to safety, or soldier on past the corpse of the great cannibal beast, feeling ever so sure that treasure is just around the corner, and with your body battered and bruised, you burn some foliage in front of you and head off into the unknown. You come out into a reservoir, and, with no other choice, you flip a switch. As you look on in horror, the water levels begin to rise. You swim up to the surface and the flow of the water carries you into the fabled Temple of the Dollar. Had you taken the safe option and followed the arrows, you'd find yourself in a strange series of maze-like tunnels, strange paintings covering the walls and piles of skulls littered about. As you follow the arrows further, you come out into a strange-looking arena of sorts. You realize too late that the markers you've been following have led you to your demise. An army of trash hags rises up from the refuse they use to camouflage themselves and sets upon you with razor-sharp claws. You try to run, but it's of no use. You're torn to shreds by the hags just a few feet from an elevator. an elevator which would have taken you to the settlement you were so desperate to find. But fortune was on your side today, and as luck would have it, you've avoided this carefully set trap, and found yourselves in the flooded corridors of the abandoned mall. This area just so happens to be one of my favorites in the game. The rooms are tight, and as you progress, you open up more and more sections of the mall itself. You get to explore all the stores, from a movie theater to a food court, and even a game store, with a nice little Doom jump scare thrown in. The area is also littered with enemies hiding all over the place, constantly waiting to jump out and ambush you. Considering you're likely low on ammo at this point, the whole area turns into an almost survival horror experience. There's even a few creepy moving mannequins. As you fight your way through the movie theater, and eventually the food court, you'll make your way into the casino, where you find the controls to turn on the power. As you flip the switches, you also hear a storm rolling in overhead, and an army of mutants is quick to make their way inside, seeking shelter. You can technically rush straight for the exit at this point, but then you'd be missing out on all the shiny new loot you've just revealed. Players with a keen eye will even be able to find a brand new double-barreled shotgun hiding somewhere in the mall. When you do decide to head to the exit, you come out to the destination you've been seeking all along, Terminus. The guards are shocked to see you come through the mall entrance. No one's been through this way in ages, and they assumed anyone on the other side had succumbed to the mutant hordes long ago. The guard at the gate informs you that those soldiers you heard about back at the wall stopped here on their way to the city, and you have a feeling that they too were after the mysterious voice in the radio. The guard also reveals that the folks at Terminus have been hearing the broadcast themselves. They have reason to believe it comes from the Spire, a tall, seemingly indestructible building that lies at the heart of the city. You're eager to make your way there, but the radiation storm has just blown in. So for now, you head off and explore the settlement. While Terminus may be small, it offers plenty in terms of activities. Near the entrance, you'll find Riggs, the man that Smiley tasked you with delivering a package to. He's delighted when you deliver it to him, although he's not too keen on letting you in on the contents of the briefcase. However, his delight quickly turns to dismay when you mention your payment. Riggs was under the impression that Smiley had already paid you. Looks like that slimy rat shafted the both of you. Riggs can't offer much in terms of real payment, but he gives you a choice between a bit of ammo or an old suit of armor he's been working on. While delineating over your choice, it dawns on you that this man appears to be a weaponsmith of sorts. You make a counteroffer and ask if he could perhaps fix up one of your weapons instead. Riggs agrees and sets you up with a shiny new silencer and a fresh coat of paint for your machine pistol. As you turn to leave, Riggs asks you if you're interested in doing a bit of work for him. Always looking to make a quick buck, you inquire as to what he needs, and as luck would have it, he wants you to go investigate the radio signal. He's got a hunch that the signal is an automated message playing from some pre-war tech inside the Spire, and he thinks it could be worth a fortune. He's willing to pay some good coin if you're willing to get inside and check it out. Considering you planned on heading there anyways, you accept his offer. A man in the tent next door is pawning his wares, and you eagerly pick up a shiny new junker musket, a kind of homemade sniper rifle, and you put the rest of your funds into ammunition for your trip to the Spire. You have a feeling that you won't get a chance to spend it anywhere else. But if chems are more your speed, you can find a dealer next door, peddling a variety of healing and brute sims to keep you going in the heat of combat. You take whatever cash you have left to the fighting pit. Today's match sees a vicious cannibal mutant against the underdog mutant hound. You decide to go for the underdog and manage to make good on your gamble. You take your hard-earned cash over to the bar for a couple of drinks before you head out. You take a chance to enjoy a bit of liquor and a good meal to top up your health points. All the while the bartender tries to talk you out of your journey to the Spire, warning you of the DNA-scrambling radiation and the army of mutants who run the place. However, her warnings fall on deaf ears though, and you make sure to tip well before you turn and head towards the settlement gates. As you exit the settlement, the doors are locked shut behind you, and you emerge under a blood-red sky. You receive your first glimpse of what will either become your bastion or your tomb, the Spire. The folks at the station were right. The radiation is so thick out here that you can feel it frying your eyeballs out. You have to be quick about getting from building to building if you want to survive. It's nothing you can't handle though, and you set about making your way through the usual hordes of bandit dregs and mutant mobs with little effort. You climb through the ruins of the crumbling city, easing ever closer to your goal. It's not all good news though. Every step of progress you make seems to put you in the path of even greater mutant hordes. A fight inside a corporate office building gives a glimpse at one of your old friends, the first of the cannibal masters you'll need to gun down on your way to the Spire, and it's not long before you encounter another familiar face, This place is crawling with the strange ghostly apparitions you met during your foray into the subway system. These strange creatures seem to be emanating from the Spire itself. You duck into an opening to escape the creatures, only to find yourself inside a parking garage chock full of bandits taking refuge from the storm. The formula repeats: shoot, slaughter, and slash your way through the ranks before coming out to another of the city's many crumbling buildings. This time, however, you find yourself inside a building collapsed onto its side, with all the doorways warped into a strange sort of MC Escher-like labyrinth. Escaping its corridors puts you into the arms of another trash hag ambush. You begin to get the feeling that the city is doing everything in its power to prevent you from reaching your goal. These suspicions are confirmed when you emerge from the tunnel and come face to face with the Spire itself, and also the largest army of mutants you've ever laid your eyes upon. You throw everything you have at them, and it's quite a bloody battle, to say the least. As you fight your way inside, you hear a familiar voice calling to you, the voice of the woman on the radio, beckoning you forward, tantalizing you to discover her secrets, calling you from the bottom of the elevator shaft. At the bottom, you're greeted by a strange sight, what appears to be a military base. The sign above the door reads, White Watch Army Complex, and the door itself is guarded by mutants. They strangely seem to be drawn towards its interior. A keypad blocks your entry, and it doesn't take you long to realize that the password needed is the same one as the numbers the woman on the radio has been calling out to you. The inside of the base is seemingly devoid of any and all life. Only the sound of a continuous siren and steel-reinforced locked doors keep you company. Desperate for a way forward, you crawl through an air vent before coming upon a lone computer, a veritable miracle in this forgotten wasteland. You don't manage to fully clear the security lockdown, but you do turn off that annoying siren, as well as printing yourself a security pass that will hopefully grant you further access to the base. Before you leave, however, you decide to take a quick look at some of the messages hanging around the computer.
The base commander has met with the COS and has made the following decisions. 1. As soon as possible, all American personnel are to evacuate White Watch facility by road transport. You are to evacuate all essential personnel today within the Spire, as well as the embassy building. 2. Whilst you should not say so, this will be part of a complete military evacuation of the city. Any civilian inquiries should be addressed directly to myself. Do not talk to any member of the press.
You also notice talk of someone named Athena, but the system seems unable to provide any further information on this strange new figure. It doesn't take a genius to know that this name must connect to the woman on the radio. Heading towards the cafeteria brings you face to face with more of your ghost friends, strengthening your idea that they must be coming from the Spire itself. You descend further and further into the base, coming across yet another computer, and more strange messages, along with what appears to be a message left by the former National Guard members who came through here all those years ago. It reads, Athena, wake up. Checking the network logs shows massive amounts of data going into this so-called Athena. It would appear that whatever the National Guard came here for cost them their lives. Another elevator ride down brings you face to face with this so-called Athena. Rows upon rows of server banks all leading to one central computer. You're practically shaking with anticipation, ready to finally get some answers as to what the hell is going on here. You flip a switch and turn on the monitor.
Hello, it's nice to meet you. I am Athena. I am an advanced artificial intelligence, capable of making decisions far quicker than a human mind. I was designed to monitor the outside world and direct refugees to safe zones in the event of a catastrophe. I require assistance. My systems can no longer reach outside this complex. I am unable to contact survivors. I am unable to react to catastrophe. I am unable to perform my directive. Without my help, many lives will be lost. Safe zones will fail. Relief will not come. I must help. I must help. I must help. I can give you access to the command center. You must find the general. You must restore exterior access. You must be the one. You must restore access. Without it, I cannot be free. I must be free.
You're unsure of whether or not you can trust this AI, but you've never been one to leave a job unfinished. You make your way to the control room in hopes of doing what's been asked of you, and next to the main switch used to release Athena, you find the final message left for you by the National Guardsmen. Written in blood, it reads, "Don't let it out." Despite the warning, You flip the switch and are forced to stand off against one final adversary, the cannibal warlord. It's a horrid amalgamation of flesh and pain. Despite its immense size, it's able to move around the arena with deadly precision. One of its heads focuses a barrage of Gatling gun fire at you, while the other tosses explosives in your direction. You'll need every bullet and stim you can get your hands on to take down this beast. If you're skilled enough, or perhaps lucky enough, you'll manage to take it down before it fully tears you to shreds. Doing so, however, brings the rest of the base crashing down on top of you, and we're left with the game's final screen.
With a heaving scream of tortured metal, the great tower began to collapse in on itself. The secrets it once held, the base and all of its treasures, were swallowed by the weight of its own lofty heights. This all feels like history repeating, though I have no idea why. I remember a story I heard once about a woman named Pandora and a box she once owned. For some reason, I can't remember how it ends. This all feels like history repeating, and I have no idea why. Still, at least, I walk away with something.
And so ends the tale of our beloved scavenger, at least for now. A sequel continues the events of the first game, along with an expansion pack that sees our scavenger in a what-if scenario involving a deadly raider ambush, and a third game in the series was also recently announced, but those are all stories for another day. If you liked this video and want to see more in the future, consider subscribing and maybe leaving a like or a comment. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.